Rhythm games like Hi-Fi Rush have a long history in the video game industry. Everything from Dance Dance Revolution to Guitar Hero and even Donkey Konga has been tried here in the States, and it's an incredibly popular style of game still, with Taiko no Tatsujin in Japan, OS, and even Fortnite jumping on the rhythm bandwagon. It's been a year since Hi-Fi Rush was shadowdropped into our lives from Bethesda of all publishers. An Xbox and PC exclusive title marrying that rhythm-based gameplay with a platforming adventure through a dystopian corporate hellscape that sounds a lot like some of the companies I've worked for in the past. Basically Cyberpunk, but brightly colored with an equally banger soundtrack, though nothing compares to I Really Want to Stay at Your House, and the epic that is Edgerunners. Since its release in January of 2023, the game has gained major critical acclaim, and somehow didn't get a Game of the Year nod during the Game Awards this year. Talk and clips of its soundtrack alone were all people could talk about. During that past year though, nothing but the best was said about this game and its innovation. So I figured it was high time to take a look at the sick beats and cel-shaded world that came completely unannounced onto our top charts. With rumors that it may be headed to other consoles along with some other games from the Xbox library, was Hi-Fi Rush a perfect album, banger after banger? Or was it rightfully snubbed at this year's gaming Grammys? Get your amps warmed up as we carefully tune our instruments for Hi-Fi Rush's Loop. Before stage diving way too deep into this review, you may have already had the thought, Merc, buddy, this game's a year old. What are you doing? And you have a point, dear viewer. The game is a year old, but does an old game not deserve to be played and talked about into the future? Is a game only viable during its release window as fun and entertainment? Try telling any of that to the retro game community. Go ahead, I dare you, you won't. The easy answer is, I wasn't a game reviewing YouTuber when the game came out, but I am now, and by golly, I'm going to talk about whatever I want. The other answer is, games as a medium are meant to tell stories, evoke emotion, and sometimes cause massive physical harm to your body no matter when they are released. Seriously, have you seen how people play some of these rhythm games? Look up some clips of OS and Fortnite Festival. Why are you using a keyboard like that? See a doctor. For our main topic rhythm game, the gameplay is a bit more understandable than its contemporaries, as many parts of this game are pretty set in gameplay analogs we've seen for decades. Use the buttons that many of us have memorized for light attack and heavy attack to swing an approximation of a flying V at robots until they explode as you run through a platforming hellscape and fall many, many times. If you don't know what those buttons are or what a flying V is, you may need to brush up on your 80s popular music and literally any single-player sword-swinging action game from the last 30 years. For those that have never played one, it's X and Y on the Xbox or square and triangle on PlayStation. Not here to judge, but come on. Keeping a rhythm is what makes the game different from all those contemporaries though. Hit your attacks on beat, do more damage to enemies. Hit finishers on beat, do more damage to enemies. Call in a companion on beat to... you get the point. This isn't a game that needs the rhythm mechanic, but it sure stood out for it and adds just a bit of flair to the mix that really gets in your head. The music here helps a lot, with obvious roots in multiple genres and decades of inspiration to choose from. The mixes that are available are solid choices and overall add to the atmosphere of the game. What kind of breaks all of this, in my opinion, is that some of the platforming doesn't feel great. The game overall reminds me a lot of one of my favorite childhood games, the original Sly Cooper from the PlayStation 2 era. The similarities run deeper than just the swamp section of that game as well. Some of the art and animations don't quite mesh well with the actual hitboxes for platforms. The jumping feels a bit off here as well, a little short both in height and distance, to the point that I often thought I would miss a jump, and more often did miss it. I don't think it's bad enough to be unplayable, but it was a bit frustrating during some timed platforming sequences to misjudge a jump. The world of Hi-Fi Rush is a beautiful, cel-shaded wonder, full of cyberpunk tropes, huge technological towers, and abilities beyond human capability. It's also a corporate dystopia, boiling over with jargon, business jokes, and the complete and total replacement of the working class by robots, leaving humanity to replace their limbs and other organic parts with machines to get the edge up on the robot overlords. But it's just so damn pretty. We start this game off seeing how humans go about getting replacements in bionics, and it's very, very cold. Conveyor belts, robot arms. It's like walking into an automotive factory where human hands don't touch a car until very late in the process. We see corporate greed, backstabbing, ineffective management, shitty bosses, and the worst point of all, nepotism, running rampant in the Vandalay company, with Kale taking over and being absolutely not the right choice for the role. We see squandering of funds by incompetent development teams, making things that do not matter for their own self-interest, and completely not caring about what the company was founded on. We see a marketing staff that is all about their name being in lights and not pushing the good things that the company has done, and what they are striving to help with in the future. We have to go back to Kale though, because his plan for the evolution of an ecosystem is right out of a dystopian novel. But while it is fantasy, you can see the lines that companies like Apple and Google and Microsoft themselves have right now that lead to this type of consumerism and late-stage capitalism in games like this. Fighting against the man when the man is literally footing the bill of this game is crazy, and I can't believe that the deeper roots story here got published by Bethesda, who is owned by Microsoft. What a world we live in, and what a world was built for this game. The cast of characters in Hi-Fi Rush definitely bring much of the world to life, both corporate and anti-corporate. The player character Chai reminds me of many of the people I went to high school with. Head in the clouds, wannabe musicians that think all of the best parts of being a musician are what matters. The fame, the fortune, the fans screaming your name and being the center of attention. What Chai fails to realize is how much work and time it will take to be a famous rock star, and that just having a metal arm won't cut it. Or will it? With a hack job bionics implant sealing his fate, and heart, he marches to a different beat now. 808 and Peppermint are probably my two favorite characters in this game. 808, the robot cat that acts as a metronome throughout your adventures, as well as the key to many of your abilities and advancements, glides around by Chai's side and helps him out of many sticky situations. That's all thanks to 808's creator, Peppermint, a headstrong anti-corpo punk with dreams of sticking it to the man and bringing down all the bad that Vandelay has become since its founder left. She has drive and determination to make things right as she sees fit, and gets frustrated by Chai's everything for most of the game. He isn't the hero she wanted, but he is the hero she needed. Macaron and Cinnamon are two additional allies you meet along the way that have their own issues with Vandelay and the way the company has been running since the founder, Roxanne, retired. Passed over for a role and disapproving of upper management and the executives, Macaron sent messages to Peppermint on the outside to let her know about some of the more insidious things going on in the company. Macaron is a designer and not a fighter, and needed help getting things fixed to be like the old betterment of society company that Vandelay was. The last big group of characters we have to talk about are the Vandelay executives themselves. Starting by order of dealings, we meet Rekka first, a big, burly, wrestling-styled character in charge of production. She runs a tight ship, and the fact that Chai exists is a blemish on her perfect record that she is not happy with. Next is Zanzo, a walking JoJo's Bizarre Adventure reference and the head of research and development. He spends money like there's no tomorrow and insists that it's for the company's betterment, when it's for his own personal machinations and power lust. Corsica blocks Chai's path next as the newest member of the executives. She leads security and is trusted little by the rest of the team. She knows next to nothing about the plans that Vandelay has laid, but when she finds out, all hell breaks loose. Mimosa does her best to keep all eyes on her and not all the problems that are happening throughout the company, using her tech and personality to hold a musical show for the adoring fans of Vandelay, while everyone else is working towards stopping Chai and the gang from interrupting their plans. Roquefort advises the board on finance and will stop at nothing to gain his profits and keep the train rolling. Don't let looks deceive you though. This old man has claws and fangs to stop Chai. Finally, there's Kale, the CEO, the big boss, the self-centered monster at the head of the organization that seems more and more monstrous as the story unfolds. We will get to some of those things in the next section, but let's just say blood is not thicker than fame and profit in Kale's eyes. The story in Hi-Fi Rush isn't all that flashy. There are some twists and turns, but what unfolds throughout this game's time is simple but effective, hitting plenty of notes of corporate espionage, caffeine addictions, musical references, and plenty of just silly gags really let the game shine for what it is, an experience. It's not the genre-defining hit that you would expect from Bethesda, but it hits all the right notes to drive home the point it's trying to make. Vandelay is seen as the helping force, but also the Apple or Google of this world, striving to make tech for the betterment of man, but at its core, driving more and more people to start in their ecosystem and stick with it. Cybernetic upgrades to do menial jobs, like Chai being selected for trash duty, but showing that even the smallest of us can rise to greatness. It goes into a lot of the corporate politicking of the modern day, whistleblowing, corporate greed, seeing customers as numbers instead of people, and willfully ignoring the issues that their product causes instead of working to make them better. It also gives a lot to those with disabilities or those seen as outcast by society. Don't get me wrong, Chai is an absolute bog standard white guy, with his biggest issue being his absolute lack of self-awareness and poise. After he gets his upgrade and due to the negligence of Kale himself, Chai is labeled as a defect, a problem that cannot be allowed to exist, and needs to be fixed, when realistically, he is given a greater enhancement that allows him to push harder and be stronger and better than any of the other Vandelay employees with enhancements. With a little help from 808 and Peppermint, he gets stronger and better and honestly grows up a lot during the time fighting the corporation. He and Peppermint learn about Spectra, a mind control program planted in all the Vandelay tech, designed to make society mindless shills for Vandelay products and worship Kale as their tech leader. They begin their journey to take down Vandelay one executive at a time to get their passwords for the system to shut it all down from the inside. Finding and teaming up with Macaron and Cinnamon and guiding Corsica down her path of discovery allow the team to grow and push farther and farther up the chain until a showdown with Kale is inevitable. Learning just what happened to the founder of Vandelay and the reveal of Roxanne Vandelay being the mother of both Kale and Peppermint is a twist I kind of expected for a good portion of the game, but the payoff overall was nice. The ending and the changes that happened following the fall of Kale and termination of Spectra show what the ideal corporate life would be. It is a fantasy game though, so your 9 to 5 probably won't look like this anytime soon. If ever. A man can dream though. With almost every rhythm game that's come before this one, there's one key resource that's really been counted on over and over again. No, it's not the sick audio dubbing or even the calibration of your screen you're playing on, though those things are super important. It's how you interact with the game, namely controllers. Guitar Hero had the iconic guitar, and every other plastic instrument that came after it and sits in your garage or closet with the rest of the Misfit toys. Dance Dance Revolution had its player stage or mat that you used to hit the corresponding symbol of movement. Donkey Konga had the bongos, and DJ Hero had its abomination. Even OS players have special 2-key keyboards and utilize Wacom tablets to hit their notes. There are also rumors of new plastic instruments being made for Fortnite Festival. The controller is the single most important part of the rhythm game, and using a controller that isn't right breaks everything, or becomes a personal challenge for some people. Hi-Fi Rush doesn't have a special controller. It doesn't require some additional add-on. It just plays with a controller, and for me, that was my biggest mistake. For PC games, I generally use a mouse and keyboard, but something about this game told me I needed to break out my controller for this one. I use a Gully Kit King Kong Pro 2 for pretty much everything at this point. The one killer to that is that Windows Bluetooth kinda sucks. Playing on a desktop in particular, the antenna for my Bluetooth was behind my PC because I'm hardwired into my network setup. Move the antenna and like magic the game felt better. Is this user error? Yes. Am I an idiot? Also yes. But Bluetooth controllers on PC being a fault in the game feels bad. A nice warning saying, hey, it's a rhythm game. Plug your controller in, dumbass, would have been helpful. Even outside of the controller though, some things just feel wrong. Missing beats even with a controller plugged in happens and feels more like a micro stutter than the player actually missing that beat. I'm not sure what the issue is with this one, but missing beats feels absolutely punishing. Which, like, yeah, it's a rhythm game. But missing beats when you swear you hit that button, oh my god, this game is broken, kills the whole experience. I'm not looking for grace here. I know I need to just get good. But damn, doing the same button sequence 7 times to progress is aggravating. My last rhythm game gripe is the difference between the brute force and keeping time. In most rhythm games, keeping time is essential to the whole thing. In Hi-Fi Rush, brute force can get you through most of it, and that kind of breaks the whole thing for me. Inclusivity aside, as this game does that very well, and debatably is about that very topic in some regards. Keeping beat only makes you better. It doesn't block you out, so getting used to the rhythm and building on it doesn't really happen. I know I just said that missed beats feel punishing, but I think they put the punishment and brute force settings in the wrong spot for this rhythm game in particular. So after all that, I have some actual issues with Hi-Fi Rush as a game. Everything I said before was more issues or walls that rhythm games as a whole have that I would like to see built on, expanded, or fixed. The issues with this game in particular have a lot less to do with the genre as a whole. The difficulty curve of this game could use some work. Overall, the trash mobs are kind of brain dead. There's a couple of interesting concepts weaved throughout the game, but going from them to the bosses doesn't feel like progression. It feels like they're just to pad time and maybe give you a reason to find a new power story-wise, but definitely not gameplay-wise. The difference between the Mimosa Gauntlet and the Mimosa fight are night and day. The Roquefort fight is absolutely insane, which the game ill prepares you for before making it that far into this game. Speaking on some of the trash mobs, a lot of them are varied with abilities and even grow to add more power as you progress, though not enough many times as pointed out with the power curve. One of the other issues with these mobs is it's hard to tell many of them apart because they're all just robots with different colors. Remembering which one does what and their patterns are a bit difficult with some of the bots in particular. Last but not least, controller issues suck. I feel like I said enough on this topic earlier. but no notice or this game is best played with signage is a bit frustrating. I know I'm the idiot in this case, but with wireless controllers being so prevalent in modern gaming, the thought never even crossed my mind. After all these years and all these iterations, rhythm games are still a blast in 2024, and Hi-Fi Rush is doing something very different. As I said earlier, it reminded me of parts of my favorite childhood game, and also gave me many doses of the same things that drew me into Guitar Hero, Rock Band, Fortnite Festival, and DDR over the years. The best part was it told a story that really felt good and fun, all wrapped in a beautiful art style. Now, if only some other Bethesda games played and felt as good as this one. Maybe it's time for me to give up that dream, or maybe it's time for us all to move to a new beat.